Okay, let's unpack this. When you hear the word Sherpa, what's the first thing that comes to mind? For most of us, I think it's a very specific image.
It is. It's someone high on a mountain, probably Everest, a guide, an expert climber, carrying an enormous load.
Right. The word itself has become synonymous with this kind of superhuman resilience at high altitude.
And while that image is, a testament to their incredible skill, it really only scratches the surface. It's just one part of a much bigger story.
That's exactly what we want to do today in this deep dive. We want to get past that surface level idea.
The Sherpa people are an ethnic group with a history, a biology, and a spiritual identity that is so much deeper than just mountaineering.
So our mission today is pretty clear. We're going to take a really structured look at their migration history, their unique biology, which is frankly incredible, their culture, and this modern paradox they live with.
A paradox of high-risk work colliding with a global industry. It's a fascinating story.
Let's start with the name itself, because it's so often misused, right? It's not just a job title.
Not at all. The word Sherpa actually tells you where they came from. It's from the Tibetan language.
Okay.
It's a combination of two words, shar, which means east, and pa, which means people.
So East people.
Exactly, the people of the East. It's a literal description of their origin.
Which means they came from Eastern Tibet.
Precisely. But today, their community is primarily based south of Tibet, in the highlands of Nepal. We're talking about places like the Solukhumbu district. That's their real heartland.
But they're not just in that one area, are they? The sources mention they're more dispersed.
Oh, absolutely. While Solukhumbu is central, you find significant communities in other parts of Nepal and also across the border in Tingri County in China, in Bhutan.
And in India, too, I saw.
Yes, particularly in Sikkim and northern West Bengal, around Darjeeling. It shows this long history of mobility across the Himalayas, but they've managed to maintain a really cohesive cultural identity.
And what about their language? If they came from Tibet, can they still communicate easily with, say, someone from Lhasa?
That's a great question, and the answer is no. Their language, also called Sherpa, is part of the Tibeto-Burman family, but it has evolved. It's actually unintelligible to a Lhasa Tibetan speaker.
So it's another marker of their distinct identity.
It is. The language, the culture, the religion, it all adapted and became uniquely theirs after they settled in their new homeland.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about that journey. This migration from Tibet wasn't just a short hop over the mountains.
No, this was a massive, centuries-long movement that really defines who they are. Their oral history is incredibly detailed about it.
So they're descended from nomads who settled in the Khumbu region, right around Everest.
Exactly, right on the border with what is now China. And their traditions name the 4 original clans that made the journey from a region in eastern Tibet called Kham.
I remember reading their names, the Minyakba, Timi, Lama Sherwa, and Chawa.
Those are the ones.
Yeah.
And from those 4 original clans, the community grew and diversified over centuries into more than 20 distinct groups.
And what's the timeline we're looking at for this migration?
The estimates place the main wave of migration sometime during the 13th and 14th centuries. So think about that. A medieval-era journey across the highest mountain range in the world.
And why? Why leave? The sources suggest there might have been some kind of conflict.
That seems to be a major factor. The thinking is that conflict related to the spread of Mahayana Buddhism in their original homeland might have pushed them to seek new territory.
But they weren't just looking for land, were they? There's a spiritual element to it.
A huge one. They were seeking Biul, these hidden sacred valleys. We'll get into that more in the culture section, but it was a spiritual quest as much as a physical migration.
So they arrive in Khumbu and they establish themselves pretty quickly, politically speaking.
They do. By the 15th century, the Khumbu Sherpas had a remarkable amount of autonomy. They were basically self-governing for hundreds of years.
But that changed in the 20th century.
It did. The modern world caught up. In the 1960s, tensions between Nepal and China grew, and the central government in Kathmandu started to exert much more control over these remote areas.
And that led to the creation of the national park.
Yes. In 1976, the whole Khumbu region was designated as Sagarmatha National Park. And that single act cemented tourism and mountaineering as the economic engine of the region.
It sets the stage for everything that follows.
It really does. It's the moment their ancient way of life becomes intertwined with this global high-stakes industry.
Okay, let's pivot from their history to their biology, because this is what allowed them to thrive in that environment. It's the science behind their resilience.
It's maybe the most incredible part of their story. Genetically, as you'd expect, they cluster very closely with Tibetan and Han populations.
Which confirms the migration story.
Right. But they also show genetic links to other Himalayan groups like the Rai and the Magars, which points to a long history of interaction in the region.
But the big story, the one that gets all the attention, is this so-called super athlete gene.
Yes, that's the nickname for a specific gene called EPAS1. Studies have found over 30 genetic factors that help them at high altitude, but EPAS1 is the star player.
So for those of us who live at sea level, what's the problem that EPS1 solves? What happens to our bodies up there?
Well, when a lowlander goes to extreme altitude, the body senses the lack of oxygen hypoxia, and it basically panics.
Right. It tries to compensate.
It overcompensates. It floods the system with red blood cells and hemoglobin to try and carry more oxygen.
And that sounds like a good thing, but it's not.
It's actually very dangerous.
Yeah.
That process makes your blood incredibly thick, which raises the risk of strokes, blood clots, and the fluid buildup in the lungs and brain that defines severe altitude sickness.
So how does EPA1 change that for the Sherpa?
It's an efficiency regulator. Instead of overproducing hemoglobin, their bodies use the limited oxygen available far more efficiently. They don't have that dangerous blood-thickening response. Their system is just, it's calmer, it's better adapted.
And this isn't a recent thing. This adaptation goes way, way back.
Oh, thousands of years. Studies suggest this genetic blueprint has been around for something like 7,000 to 11,000 years. So this is deep, deep prehistory. It means the foundation for their high-altitude survival was laid long before they even migrated from Kham. It's fundamental to who they are.
And when you look at their specific lineage, the male and female lines tell slightly different stories.
Right, they do. The paternal line, the Y chromosome, shows a very strong and clear link back to Tibetans. The DM174 haplogroup is the most common, which reinforces that direct migration history.
But the maternal side is more diverse.
Much more diverse. The mitochondrial DNA shows that in addition to the common Asian haplogroups, there are two subgroups that seem to be unique just to Sherpa populations.
A15C1 and C43B1.
Those are the ones. It suggests a more complex history on the maternal side, maybe incorporating other groups along the way.
And there was a bit of a debate in the research about a possible genetic link to the Indian subcontinent, wasn't there?
There was, yeah. A 2014 study suggested there might be a significant South Asian component, maybe up to 17%.
But that was later challenged.
It was. Follow-up studies in 2015 and 2017 concluded that the genetic sharing was actually pretty limited, and that the Sherpa are overwhelmingly Sino-Tibetan in origin. It's a good example of how science kind of, self-corrects over time to get to a clearer picture.
So this genetic advantage translates directly into their modern profession. Sherpa is a famous name because of mountaineering.
It's the perfect marriage of biology and expertise. They had this incredible physical head start, and then they layered on generations of experience and intimate knowledge of the mountains. Tenzing Norgay is the most famous example, of course.
Reaching the summit of Everest with Edmund Hillary in 1953.
And that one achievement really put them on the global map. It's why the word Sherpa became a kind of generic term for any high-altitude guide, regardless of their ethnicity.
It's become shorthand for expert.
Exactly. And it's not just the EPAS1 gene. There's speculation about other things, like how they produce double the nitric oxide, which helps with circulation. It all adds up to this incredible endurance.
Which brings us right to the heart of the paradox. That advantage puts them directly in the most dangerous place on the mountain. The Khumbu Icefall.
The icefall is a monster. It's not just ice. It's a moving glacier, a frozen waterfall that shifts several feet every single day. It's inherently unstable.
And it's filled with these things called seracs. What are those exactly?
A serac is a huge, towering block of glacial ice. Think of a skyscraper made of ice that could collapse at any moment without any warning. The icefall is a minefield of them.
Which is why they have to travel through it at night when it's colder and a bit more stable.
Right. It adds another layer of difficulty to an already insane task.
But the most shocking part of this is the imbalance of risk. How many times does a Sherpa cross it compared to a paying client?
The number is just staggering. A Sherpa guide, because they're carrying all the gear, the tents, the food, the oxygen, they will cross the Khumbu Icefall about 30 times in a single season.
30 times. And the client?
The international client will cross it maybe twice. 3 times, max. And they're doing it on ropes and ladders that the Sherpas have already set up and checked repeatedly.
So the Sherpa community is absorbing virtually all of the risk.
100% of the catastrophic risk. for an industry that generates hundreds of millions of dollars.
Let's talk about that money. What does a Sherpa guide actually earn for taking on that level of danger?
Typically, a guide can make somewhere between $3,000 and $5,000 for a 2 to 3 month season.
Which, to be fair, is a very good income in the context of Nepal's economy.
It's a massive income. It's why they do it. It can support an entire family for a year. But then you compare that to the $300 million the Everest industry brought to Nepal in 2019.
So they're getting a tiny fraction of the total profit while taking on almost all the physical risk.
That's the brutal math.
Right.
And that imbalance is what exploded into a crisis after the 2014 avalanche.
That tragedy really changed the conversation.
It had to. On April 18th, 2014, a huge serac broke off and triggered an avalanche in the icefall. 16 Nepalese Sherpa guides were killed almost instantly.
And the detail from the sources that always stuck with me is what they were carrying. It wasn't emergency gear.
No. They were carrying clients' luxury items, extra gear, nice food. It highlighted that they died doing what was essentially commercial labor, not as part of a heroic climb.
And then came the government's response.
Which was, frankly, an insult. The government offered the families of the deceased about 40,000 rupees. That's around $400.
$400 for a life lost in a multi-million-dollar industry.
The anger was immediate and profound. The remaining Sherpas at base camp went on strike.
They shut the season down. What were they demanding?
Better working conditions, better insurance, and just basic respect from the government. They were furious. They debated canceling the entire season.
And there was that one quote that just captured the spiritual devastation of it all.
Yes. They said, this route has become a graveyard. And then they asked, how could we walk over their bodies?
It wasn't just a labor dispute, it was a spiritual crisis.
Absolutely. Meanwhile, you had some of the foreign clients who'd paid a fortune complaining about their climb being ruined. It just laid the whole power dynamic bare.
And the tragedies kept coming. The 2015 earthquake killed 10 more Sherpas at base camp.
The numbers are just horrific. Between 1921 and 2018, 118 Sherpas died on Everest. They make up about a third of all deaths on the mountain. Their greatest strength has become their greatest vulnerability.
To understand that statement, how could we walk over their bodies? We have to dive into their spiritual life. It's all connected.
It is. Their faith is primarily the Nyingma school of Tibetan Buddhism, which is the oldest school founded by Guru Rinpoche.
And what's unique about the Nyingma tradition?
It has a strong mystical streak, but most importantly, it incorporated the local pre-Buddhist shamanistic religion, which is called Bun.
So it's a blend of formal Buddhism and this older indigenous spirit world.
Precisely. They believe that mountains, caves, rivers, they're all inhabited by gods and demons. These are living, sacred landscapes that have to be respected and appeased.
And their spiritual leadership reflects that blend, too. It's not just monks.
Not at all. You have the village lamas, who can be monks or married householders. But you also have Lawa, who are shamans that deal with spirit possession, and Mindung, who are soothsayers. They all play a role.
And the center of religious life is the Gompa, the temple.
Right, the village temple or monastery. And these are everywhere in the Solu-Khumbu region. It's the physical heart of their faith.
This all brings us back to the conflict with tourism. The reason they migrated in the first place was spiritual.
It was. They were searching for those Bayul, the hidden sacred valleys. The land itself is their refuge.
So when they look at Mount Everest, they don't see the world's highest mountain.
No, they see Chamalinga.
The mother of the world.
Exactly. And Mount Makalu is the deity Shankar. These aren't just piles of rock and ice. They are powerful deities. To climb them without permission is a profound violation.
And the actions of tourists, even small ones, can be a huge offense.
A huge one. A common problem is tourists cutting down trees for firewood. For the Sherpa, that's not just damaging the environment, it's violating a sacred being. It's an offense against the deity of that place.
And is there any way for them to protect this sacred landscape through the official channels?
They try. There are buffer zone groups where Sherpa leaders can voice their concerns to the park managers.
But they don't have any real power.
No. The final say always rests with the central government in Kathmandu, where the economic incentive of tourism usually wins out over local spiritual concerns.
It's a constant tension. Let's look at their more day-to-day culture. The details of their clothing and homes tell such a rich story.
They do. The traditional clothing is very similar to Tibetan wear, made from thick wool or sheepskin. For men, the main garment is the chuba, a long robe.
And it's tied with a sash that creates a sort of built-in pouch.
Exactly. The Kara sash forms a pouch called a namdok, which is incredibly practical for carrying small things.
And the women's clothing is very colorful.
Very. They wear a long dress called a tongkok, But the most iconic parts are the striped aprons, the pangdon in the front, and the kiwi in the back. They're a real marker of their cultural identity.
Though, like everywhere, modernization is creeping in.
It is. Factory-made materials are replacing the homespun wool, and Western clothes are common now for daily wear.
Their housing also has this deep sense of community built into it.
It really does. Homes are built of stone, and the architecture is perfectly adapted to the terrain. But the most amazing part is how they're built.
It's a community effort.
A total community effort. When a new house is needed, neighbors all pitch in with labor, food, and drinks. It's a system of reciprocity that binds the village together. And the houses themselves are passed down through the family, not usually sold.
And this communal spirit is also formalized in their social gatherings, this tradition of Yangzi.
Yes, a Yangzi is a party, but it's more than that. It's a social investment. A host throws a party to gain favor and goodwill with their neighbors, with the expectation that it will be returned later.
And there's a strict social code, even down to where you sit.
Oh, absolutely. The seating arrangement is very rigid. Higher status guests sit near the fireplace, the place of honor. Lower status guests sit closer to the door.
And women are seated in the center.
Generally, yes, without that strict hierarchy. It's actually considered polite to sit in a lower position than you deserve, so the host can publicly honor you by inviting you to move up. It's a very structured social dance.
It's a mechanism for keeping the community strong.
Exactly.
Well,
it reinforces the social bonds that are essential for survival in such a harsh environment.
So what does this all mean when we connect all these dots? What's the big picture?
The big picture is a story of, I think, incredible endurance. You have this profound genetic adaptation that lets them live where others can't. And that is woven into this deep spiritual connection to their homeland.
But now that ancient blueprint, both biological and spiritual, is in a direct collision course with this massive global industry.
They're forced to use their genetic gift to risk their lives on sacred ground, on routes they've called graveyards, to fuel an economy that, well, that often doesn't fully value their sacrifice.
And yet, amidst all that risk and that paradox, the level of individual achievement is just staggering.
It's off the charts. You have to mention them by name. Tenzing Norgay, who started it all. Kami Rita, who has climbed Everest more times than anyone in history.
Lakpa Sherpa, the most accomplished female Everest climber. And the next generation, like Nimarenji, the youngest to climb all 14 of the world's highest peaks.
Their achievements are a testament to their mastery, but they also highlight the terrible cost the community has paid.
Which leaves us with this core tension for their future, this clash between their spiritual view of Chomolingma, the mother of the world, and the economic necessity of selling access to her.
And that's the provocative thought to leave you with. Can they maintain that spiritual integrity? Can they protect their sacred landscape when their survival depends on an industry that sees the mountain as a product to be sold?
What is the price a community like this has to pay for economic survival in the modern world? Is walking over bodies on sacred ground a permanent cost of doing